All right. So today I'm going to present to you guys the case of the Blue Rainbow. This is a fictional family analysis of the Johnson family from the TV show Blackish. So just a quick introduction of the Johnsons. First, there's Andre, aka Dad, and they also call him Dre. He's 48 years old, identifies as cisgendered male, African American. He is an advertising executive, and he was raised in Compton, California. Next, we have Rainbow, aka Mom. They also call her Bo. She's 48 years old, cisgendered female, biracial. She's an anesthesiologist, and she was raised in a commune up until she was a teenager. Next, we have the eldest daughter, Zoe. She's 20, cisgendered female, multiracial. She's a college student, and she lives on campus, not in the family home. This is a big family, guys. Next, we have Andre Jr., aka they call him Junior. He's 18 years old, cisgendered male, multiracial. He's on a gap year from college and living in the family home outside of LA. Next, we have Diane. She's a twin, 13 years old, cisgendered female, multiracial, and in 7th grade. And her twin brother is Jack. He's 13 as well, cisgendered male, also in 7th grade. And finally, we have Devontae. He's 2 months old, biologically male. His family identifies him as multiracial, and he has no occupation. He's a baby. So here is the situation about what's going on with Bo. And I'm going to have to look at you guys to see if it'll actually come up. The video. Do you guys see this change? Okay. All right.
Say jump, man.
Can you hear it?
Come on, Devontae. Say Jordan. Hey, babe. Look, his first Jordans. Okay.
Huh? Cute.
Yep, something was off with Bo, and it was starting to make me nervous. It was starting to make us all nervous.
So we all know that Dad is an unreliable parent.
Inept. Useless.
Embarrassing.
And we've all noticed that Mom's been a little off lately.
A little.
I've noticed it too.
Joey, freeze. Where are you going?
A party.
Here's a fun idea. Take your brother. Yep.
Oh, perfect.
Have fun.
I don't know, guys. He seems fine to me.
That's why it's so important we help Mom get back on her feet. We can't let Dad be Devontae's sole provider.
God, no.
Doom.
All right. So that is the situation that's happening with them. Let's see if I can change. Okay. Yes. So the first session, here's what I observed. All 7 of the family members arrived on time to my office. Junior walks in first. He's wearing baby Devontae in a Moby wrap. He's followed by Zoe and the twins. Andre walks in side by side with Bo, and he's holding her hand. Everybody is dressed casually and appropriate to the situation with the exception of Bo. The family focuses on Bo as the identified client, and everybody just kind of sits various places around my office. It is noteworthy that Junior doesn't take a seat, instead he stands while he rocks the baby to keep the baby calm. As Bo is the identified client, we'll address her presentation in a bit more detail. Bo's wearing pajama pants. She has a stained t-shirt on and flip-flops. Her hair is slightly disheveled. She presents with flat affect and a depressed mood. When she does engage in discussion, which she doesn't really do much in the first session, her thought process is circumstantial. Further, Bo was preoccupied and she seemed to zone out of the conversation and demonstrated latency in her speed of thought. So when I asked what brought the family in, Junior took the lead. He stated that my mom, quote, "my mom is just not acting normal," end quote. I probed for information from each family member. Andre stated that he felt something was wrong with his wife, but did not express concern that her mood would last very long. Zoe and the twins offered that they were concerned that something was drastically wrong with mom. And when I probed for information from Bo, she seemed preoccupied in thought. She took several seconds to realize that I was even speaking to her. And once she did focus her attention on me, she stated that the family must be concerned about her mood. When I probed deeper, Bo shrugged her shoulders and offered that she didn't know why exactly the family was so concerned or how being in family therapy could be helpful. So I used surprise and internal family systems conceptualization of the client. In IFS therapy, each member of the family is viewed as a whole person consisting of parts that engage with others and with the environment. So just as family systems therapists conceptualize families as a whole unit with each member playing various parts to keep the system in balance, IFS views individual people as consisting of various parts that keep the internal system balanced. So in an IFS family therapy session, we'll need to focus on the parts of the symptomatic individual and how those parts are interacting with other family members. IFS is usually an individual therapeutic modality, but Wart et al. In 2001 outlined the process of working with parts of each individual in a family. Additionally, Anderson 2020 outlined how to use IFS techniques when working with couples. So it's from these frameworks that I am proposing to work with the Johnson family. So let's talk a little bit about protector parts. In IFS, symptoms are conceived as protector parts. So as the name implies, protector parts protect another part of the psyche that carries a wound, and they call that an exile. Generally, wounds are created due to some interpersonal trauma in the past, and they're activated or triggered in a current situation. So in Bo's case, her symptoms of depression would be recognized as a protector part that's acting depressed in order to protect a wound. So Bo's protector, her depressed part, is basically interacting with various other parts of her family members, and that's creating the dysfunction that's bringing them into session. So let's break down a little bit about how I'm conceiving each family member's parts. So we're talking about Bo first. Bo's depressed part is acting withdrawn and isolating Bo in order to meet a need. So perhaps this part is protecting an exile who feels overwhelmed by responsibility. Keep in mind, Bo is a mother of 5 children who has a full-time job in a hospital. So on a good day, Bo has a lot of responsibility. Add to the fact that she recently gave birth, and we can understand how she can feel kind of overwhelmed by her increase in responsibility. Typically, Bo's depressed protector part is kept at bay because she normally feels really competent and capable to manage her family. But since Devontae's birth, she began to feel overwhelmed because she lacked that confidence. So her protector part is coming in to manage that kind of discomfort. Oops. So let's look at how Bo's depressed part is interacting with her husband. So Dre seems to be unconcerned about Bo's depressed mood. He seems to think it's not a big deal. He thinks his wife is just having a few bad days. And I'm conceptualizing that aspect of Dre as a protector part, right? So I'm going to call it the avoidant part. This is the part of him that doesn't want to see Bo's depression. He fears that if he sees his wife as incompetent, then he has to step up and take the lead in the family. So his protector part here, his avoidant part, is doing everything it can to make sure that he stays blind to the fact that mom, Bo, is not doing what she normally does for the family, so he doesn't have to be held responsible. And finally, we're going to look at Junior's parts. We're not going to examine the rest of the family. We're going to look at Junior because he seems to be the most involved in leading this charge. I'm conceptualizing Junior as feeling afraid that his mother being depressed is going to create some insecurity for he and his siblings. So he is having a part that's activated, and we're going to call that the general. This is the part that steps in and takes charge and protects everybody involved. And so his part is not only stepping in and taking charge, but it's also helping Junior not to feel that discomfort of fear and anxiety that shows up when he thinks about his mother feeling depressed. All right. So the Johnson family has a lot of strengths. They're a very collaborative family. As you could tell in the clip, the kids got together and discussed what they needed to do to help their mom so that dad wouldn't be the primary caregiver of the baby. They're relatively low in conflict. I mean, not that they don't have any conflict, but obviously it's not something that's like really showing up in their family. And also they all seem to be willing to engage in the therapeutic process. At least the kids are. Dre seems a little bit, ambivalent. He doesn't really know what's going on, but I think considering the fact that he seems to care a lot about his wife, that he'll get on board with the therapeutic process when he has a better understanding. So let's talk about needs. So in IFS, we're conceptualizing Beau's depressed part as showing up because her internal system is out of balance, okay? So her internal imbalance is creating imbalance in the family unit as a whole, all right? And creating imbalance in these separate family members' internal system. So my thought is that they need to find a new normal, like a new way of engaging with each other, because obviously baby Devante is not going to go away. They can't go back to their old ways. And they also need to negotiate a shift in roles and responsibility, because clearly Beau is not at a state where she can handle all the responsibilities of family that she used to before Devante was born, but also Junior's still a young man and relatively irresponsible himself, so he can't take on her role in her stead indefinitely. So we're going to be looking at trying to balance the family dynamic in the hope that everyone will feel better about it. So let's talk about some goals of therapy. There are 3 that I'm thinking of. The first is to identify and understand the protective parts of Beau, Dre, and Junior. So we'll pick apart and try to understand Beau's depressed part, Dre's avoidant part, and Junior's general part. We're also going to identify the exiled parts that those protectors are kind of protecting, and to try to unburden the exiled parts. And I'll get to what that means later. And finally, we're going to try to identify some new relationship dynamics to help the family be more in balance. So potential obstacles to therapy. The first one I could think about are Dre's parents. They live nearby, if not like in the pool house, I'm not quite sure, but they might live on the property. And they are kind of traditional minded African-American parents. And the narrative around psychotherapy in the community is that that's quackery. Like Black people don't go to therapy. So they might kind of work to dissuade Dre from participating in this process because they might think he's a quack. The other obstacle I was thinking about was the negative side of Junior's general part. Like while Junior is doing a really good job having this protector part activated, he's stepping in, things are and helping out the family. The drawback to that is that if that part stays active after the family is less stressed, there might be some hierarchical problems, right? Parents are supposed to kind of take the lead here, and Junior might be stepping on some toes if he keeps this part active. And the last one is about Beau's disconnection. Like, I don't know, she might feel at this point that she prefers somebody else to take care of her responsibilities. Like this might be a little bit of a vacation for her in a sense. So she might start to kind of take her focus to other things like work and hobbies and self-care that maybe she wouldn't have gotten an opportunity to do. And if that's the case, she might lose motivation to participate in therapy. All right, so IFS has a very specific way of assessing families or assessing clients. There are the 6F method. It's finding. So we're talking about finding protector parts, focusing on the protector parts, fleshing out the protector parts, feeling towards the protector parts, befriending them, and also identifying the fears that might be present in those protector parts. And we would go through this process with each individual family member, so Beau, Dre, and Junior, and we would do it while they're all in the room. So we would work on Beau doing the 6F with her while Junior and Andre witnessed what she was going through with understanding her parts. And then we would just circle around and do it with everyone. So proposed therapeutic interventions, there are just 2 interventions that we focus on in IFS. One is unblending and the other is unburdening. And unblending, we help the clients recognize that there are parts of them that are being activated. That is not the whole them. So Beau has a depressed part, she is not depressed. We also talk about triggers as being reaction to other people's parts. So Andre's avoidant part is reacting to Beau's depressed part, not Andre is acting like this to Beau as a whole person. And we also talk about wounded parts or exiles that need healing. So the unblending helps us understand what lies below the protector part that needs to be brought to the surface and healed. And that's what we do in the unburdening process. IFS conceptualizes us being in relationship to ourself with a capital S as the healing modality. So in this case, we would be unblending Beau's parts and introducing her depressed part as well as her exiled part to herself. Herself is essentially the part of her that's not a part. Does that make sense? And then try to get her to have a corrective experience or get her parts to have a corrective experience with herself with a capital S. Finally, prognosis and treatment recommendations. So mindfulness is kind of like the foundation of IFS. You can't do it without it. So a lot of the work does happen in session, but what I would recommend in between sessions is for them, the family, to do either individual meditation, or family yoga. The point here is that mindfulness is kind of like the state of being that helps clients be aware of their protector parts when they're active, but it's also the state of being that self with a capital S energy shows up, and no healing occurs when self is not present. So the more mindfulness practices they can engage in, the more easily they're able to access self, and therefore the healing can occur more readily. And these are my references. Any questions?
Again, not a question, but sorry, Gia, but really good job. You know how much I love IFS, so like this was so great to watch. I really liked how you incorporated like Junior into that instead of just like, I guess, treating it as just like not like a Beau problem, but like Beau's situation. You kind of incorporated like Andre's part in it and Junior's part in it. And like Andre, I think, I don't want to say it makes more sense, but like in the case of like him being her partner, I think they kind of have a similar status, but including Junior, I think provided an extra layer of like importance and another factor that was really, really interesting to see.
I just have a general comment. I'm also very interested in IFS, as you like have introduced like several times in our practicum class, but I haven't heard about it like interacting with the family. As a whole, I think that is very interesting, and I learned more about IFS also. Thank you. Good job, Keya.
Thanks, Keya.
Yeah, that was awesome. I didn't realize IFS, like, it reminds me in a lot of ways, probably because I have a very basic understanding from what, like, I mean, this was the most I've ever learned about it, I should say. Not that you did a basic presentation, but some of the terms really resonate with my use of schema therapy and the idea of like parts of a whole that you then want to sort of like, I like that they focus on unburdening rather than even like schema theory is more about let's like create like or strengthen the healthy adult, which I think can come off as very judgmental. So I like the idea of like the self just being, let's be present with our wants, needs, values, all of these things that are supposed to be like the healthy adult moderating. So I like that. I have to look into it more now. But also I've watched Blackish like backwards and forwards like 15 times now. And so like your theory about Beau maybe finding like a vacation, I've never heard that idea in a way that wasn't like, I've heard what does your depression do for you, and I've been horrified of that question, but the way you presented it, there's so many jokes in the show about Dre being like basically her sixth child, right? Like
Yeah.
the idea that like she's gonna have to like, okay, Dre, here we go again. And so it actually made sense in like a non-judgmental way. I just really, knowing the show and the characters and loving your presentation, I wanted to just say it tracked for me from what I understand of their relationship as well. So that was cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, I'm gonna stop recording.